track of the days this week. It seems to be whizzing by really quickly. Now everyone can go out. It's all very odd. I'm joined tonight by with my guest, Phillippa Egerton. And Phillippa is based in Wandsworth. Welcome, Phillippa.
Thank you, Lesley.
So Phillippa is multi-talented, does lots of different artworks, from woodcut and printmaking, screen printing to painting. And we're going to hear all about that in a minute. We are live streaming onto Facebook and onto YouTube. So if anyone is over there and watching us and has any questions, please put them in the question area. And Sophie, my lovely able assistant, if only we were on TV, I would be able to show her, will be over there picking up any questions that we have. Hi, Juliet. Everyone's arriving now. Quickly whizzing in, they are. So yeah, anyone asking questions on who's watching on Facebook and YouTube live stream, then please pop them in the question area and Sophie will bring them across. Anyone who's watching us here live on Crowdcast, you all know the drill. It's in the Ask a Question area at the bottom, so I don't have to keep looking at the stream on the side. If we get any interlopers like we did last night, just ignore them. Don't engage them in conversation. So interlopers, we had a few people arrive in the sidebar chatting last night, having a side conversation. They were having a little side hustle while we were broadcasting, so that was fine. But yeah, we're here.
Ringo,
you're fine, we can still see you.
I was going to try to see if I could make it go full.
Oh no, I'll have to do that. I will make it go full, so don't worry.
Yep.
So tonight we've got Phillippa, and then yesterday we had Mark. That was great. Mark Austin. That was really brilliant. And then over the weekend we had Julia Desch and Stephanie Else. Hopefully lots of people have seen those videos as well. Brilliant. So interesting. So yeah, lots to see, all last week's catch up as well. You can see them all on here. All you have to do is go to the top schedule on the top left hand side and click on there, and you'll see all the previous recordings and you can watch them back. Obviously they're all on the Pure website. So Phillippa, I'm going to give you the screen.
Oh yes.
And then you're going to be on widescreen.
Oh my God.
And there you go. You have the stage.
Yes.
Hello, Annie. Annie has arrived and always has lots of questions. So that's brilliant. Hi, everyone. Hi, Yassidi. So, Phillippa, as new to Pure, which is lovely, and we're always really thrilled to have new people arriving in our tribe, please can you tell us a bit about your backstory, how you arrived in the art world?
Well, drawing and painting was something I always did, even as a kid. We had loads of opportunities. But I decided I wanted to go to university too. So I did that. I went to university, did my degree, got married, had kids, then decided it was, did a bit of this and a bit of that, and decided it was time to do something that I'd be committed to. And art had always been it was going to be art or university. So I decided it was time to take up the art, particularly when I did some work and discovered someone who was actually doing it as a mature student. So that's what I did. And I went to Chelsea School of Art and also discovered the computer there, which really changed how I work. But you also had an opportunity to work in clay, stained glass. We did a whole series of things. And then I went on to Wimbledon, and I had a patch in between. I went to Wimbledon School of Art and did an MA in printmaking. They hadn't had anyone using the computer in the process, the printmaking process at that point, and that's back in the kind of early 90s. So they were quite interested in what I was doing, basically.
Yeah, and fascinating that you started using the computer then to inform your work.
Oh yes, and in fact, all the things they do naturally now, they weren't doing at all then. As I say, I was the first student they'd had at Wimbledon that used it at all, and they were quite excited about that. But of course, they weren't really set up for it at all. and there were lots of things you couldn't do then, which you can do now. So you're kind of, but on the other hand, the early stuff was really interesting for all sorts of different kinds of reasons. You know, I actually did my first kind of drawing on a computer screen. They used to have the Nimbus system, which is the only time you ever hear of that now is in the Harry Potter series. And then they had, you know, the first thing I did was a photo etching. Because at that point I had a friend who was working at Chelsea. You could go as an adult, and they didn't have screen printing there. They only had etching classes. And so this is, whoops, this is an early photo etching. Can you see?
Oh yes, you need to put it down a little bit and just move back, down and move back slightly, because it's, there we go, perfect. That's perfect. So that's a photo etching. So talk us about how you actually went about doing that. Talk us through the process of creating that photo etching.
Well, you had the printouts first, because I actually drew it on screen, and then I had to use an enlarger. And you know, there wasn't any. There was no Illustrator back in those days. There were much more limited programs, and so I used an enlarger. And then you have this absolutely filthy stuff that you put on for photo etching, which is called toluene. And but I also had to create the what you call it. I'm having stencils, photo stencils.
Yes.
And the first one I ever did actually cost me a fortune, because I actually got a photographer to do it. It was like a positive negative, and it's like, oh my God, that cost an arm and a leg. But then I did, so then one went and got kind of found a shop that did on acetate. But then of course you had to then make it opaque, because otherwise it wouldn't develop. You know, light just went straight through it. So you had to spend hours doing that. So, you know, that I did a few of those, and that's one of the reasons why I think they took me in. But then I switched to screen printing when I discovered that screen printing there at Wimbledon was very good. And it just meant you could deal with the colours, because trying to do 2 or 3 colour plates, etching plates, is really hard work. And so one then moved into screen printing. But I'd kept all my stuff that I'd done, really interested in all the, the weird patterns that the early printers used. And of course, in those days, the inks just used to fade, as people discovered who tried to do any photographs at that time. So I actually kept a whole bunch of them. And that was one of the things I've done. I built up a whole library of early textures, which I've incorporated into my other work. And I've even created stencils, which I had to do laser cut. These are now, is that right?
Yes, that's perfect.
These are laser cut stencils, which are rather using my library of textures, but I had to learn how to use Illustrator there, because with Illustrator you can expand. You can take something up to any size at all.
So when you say you have a library of textures, is that digital? You have a digital library of all these textures?
I've got a digital library, and I've printed them out, because it's like all these things. There's a moment in time when they have these patterns, when they print it out, and that moment went, because of course they were always trying to make it look more like ordinary photographs. So they kind of moved away. You still get the digitized when you do anything for silk screens. You still get the when you're doing a four color printout, you will still get different angles, and you can choose dots or diamonds, but there's not the same variety, and it's not actually the same as the early ones were. And I was fascinated by those early ones, so I kept those, and I used them. Let me see if I've got one where, oh, it shows quite well on this one. Hang on. This little silk screen.
Oh, that's beautiful. So just back a bit, just back a little bit.
Okay, is that right?
That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
You can see there that I've used, it's just a very straightforward drawing, which I've done. And then I've used all these textures, which are part of my little library.
And that's a silk screen.
That's a silk screen.
That's stunning, Phillippa.
It's quite
stunning piece of, it's very contemporary as well.
Yeah, no.
And yet these are quite old patterns from your archive.
Yes. And so it just means that I've got my own patterns, because you know, you can't find them otherwise. You know, that's they're kind of, and I do use those. Those get incorporated into quite a lot of my silk screens. And the other thing that really fascinated me, well, I've always been fascinated by scripts. So, you know, like Arabic scripts, anything like that, which look wonderful, but you don't understand what they are. So I decided to, on the computer, I did a drawing, which is just, it's writing which has been drawn.
Yes, but that's not actually genuine words, is it? It's just your own made up.
No. It's your own made up. And then I enlarged that and turned it into, this is, say, a printout of that. There's a printout of, say, kind of a section as writing. Is that all right to see?
Yes, yeah, perfect.
Fine. And then that was a printout for that. So what I did was these blocks. And here is, I did these blocks, which are wood. These I'm afraid MDF, which was absolute killer. It's absolute killer to carve, actually, because of course it's got no grain.
So why do you choose MDF then?
I think it was just I wanted something because I'd done created my own writing. I didn't actually want a grain.
Oh, I see.
But I hadn't, you know, it did, and then on the other side, I did the negative spaces.
Wow.
So those became creatures as well. And here is a sample of an early print when I was still using some oil-based inks, but I couldn't. Oil-based inks really don't agree with my hands, so I'm happy to have the fact that nothing is, you know, that you don't have to deal with that. And all these images, they have appeared. And that's one of the reverse ones. They appear in quite a few of my prints.
They're amazing. They're like characters. You've like got a family of characters there, haven't you?
That's what's so extraordinary, is that they all develop a kind of life of their own.
They have. You can see like little eyes and like the little creatures coming out. They're incredible. Yeah,
it's a bit like when you first see, you know, computer, and you first see it printed out. Everyone thinks it's going to be all terribly straight and neat. No, it's all wobbly.
Yes.
Lots of wobbly shapes. And which is the one? Yes, this is a good one. This one, you can see that I've incorporated those kind of shapes into the print.
Wow. And so these prints, are they printed on a press or are they screen prints?
They're screen prints.
These are screen prints as well.
Screen prints.
So everything you do ends up as a screen print, is that right?
Not all of it. I have done the lino cuts and some wood cuts, but I haven't actually bought up any of my wood cuts because they're quite They're on quite fine paper. They're quite big, but the woodcut ones tend to be large, really large. So, you know, and I don't do relatively few of them. Some are very popular. And then I moved on. Then this year, I suppose, when we'll talk about the fact that I've done all these lino cuts.
Yes.
Which is another form of. Did you want to see the same tools? Use the same.
Oh
tools?
yes, if you can show us your tools, that'd be great.
No. There's one. Did I put them beside me?
They were all on your down at the side where the light is. That side.
Yes, that's right.
they've gone for a little walk.
Yes. Well, they had done a bit of a walk. There's a couple. There's just a couple. People will have seen some of these kind of tools.
Yes.
Yes.
But you actually use those on wood and on lino?
Yes, on both.
And where did you get? How long have you had those tools? Are they your tools that you've had right from day one?
Yes, I'm not sure. I may have acquired these ones from somebody gave me some of them, and they're very good. They are too. And in fact, one of my problems is sharpening them, as I kind of, like an idiot, didn't realise that you had to sharpen them.
So everyone, you need to sharpen your tools.
Yes, it's quite a knack, that. But I also buy the cheap ones as well that you can get anywhere, for which you can use for lino, but they're not so good for the wood.
No.
You need these kind of ones definitely for the wood.
Yes.
But they are superb for the other as well.
And during this last year, you've been working on a series of lino cuts, haven't you? Have you got some examples of those you can show us?
Yes. Well, one of the things I have got is an explanatory. I've got examples of that, but also little printouts.
Ah, look at this.
You see, now, this isn't actually there. I did these shapes because it was to do with COVID-19. I use these kind of shapes, which I then like to incorporate in some of my other, in some of the little pieces. They sometimes are the foreground, sometimes are the background, and it's they go in this order. That's known as the mine. That one over there is the floaters. That's the virus. That's the blob. That's the rose, and that's the wreath.
Ah, wow. And did you do this as like part of a journal during the beginning part of COVID?
I suppose I hadn't really thought about it that way, yes. But I actually planned, and I started it pretty well as soon as we went into lockdown. Because I normally do my printmaking at Putney School of Art, which has been fantastic. All these years I've been able to do my screen printing there. And you were able to, so I decided that I wouldn't be able to do that for a while. So, you know, I wanted something I could do here. I'd already got some lino, and that's what I went for. And I went for the 10 by 10 centimeter size because I'd entered some mini competition and got something in, and you know what I mean. And I thought, actually, that's a perfect size for doing. Let's see if I've got I'm trying to see. Oh yes, this one, this little print, which I call the monkey god.
That got
the discerning eye. And
yes, I can see why.
Yes, but it's also funnily enough, it's actually known as monkey god is known as what's it? Wuhan Khan or something similar to that, which I thought was quite funny, I'm afraid.
Is humour important in your work?
Is what?
Is humour important in your work?
Yes, I think it is, because I've got quite a lot of black humour, and yes, I think it is important, particularly in my kind of dystopia series with, you know, like. Do you want me to talk about those, or do you want?
You can just finish off talking about these for now, because these are amazing. So you took this on into colour.
This is also showing how I created. I've got something like 36 templates I've created, and the idea is that you can overlay them. You never quite know how things are going to work out, but this gives you an idea what you can do with just two. Because the two, and you started off with the red ones, and then you do the black on top, and it just shows you the completely different effect you get.
Yes, and these again, you've silk screened these?
No. These are just literally lino prints where
you just press them.
Yes, you roll them with ink and press them. In fact, I'm suffering from a bit of shoulder elbow. I'm sure. Much of that. I think there's something like these are kind of early ones, and it just shows. And I have, something I've lost. I must have done over 100 variations, I reckon.
Goodness gracious! And this all started from those little tiny wood lino cuts that you did at the beginning of lockdown.
Yes. Let's see if I've got a couple yet. There's the rose of the lino cut. Okay. If you can see it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And this was something else which I turned into, and that's what has been, and I've done, sometimes do it round that way. I mean, I just have, as I say, I've got 36 templates.
And what's your plan with those? You mentioned your dystopia series, and we'll go on to that in a minute, but what's your plan with this set of work that you've just done, that you were showing us?
Well, I have got them on the wall. Do you want me to turn?
Yes, go on, give us because we love to see artwork on the wall. We've been so deprived of artwork on the wall.
Oh, have I got it right yet?
Yes, no, that's perfect.
And you see, is it? Can you see the top, or do I need to tilt it up?
No, we can't see the top. That's true. Yes, tilt it up a little bit. That's it. Perfect. And then just a little bit further round, and you'll catch the last one. There we go. Yeah, that's it. Oh, that one, the very last one up in the corner looks like a crab and a crown. I love that.
That's the one with this one here, you mean, or this one?
The one on your wall. So you've got the big one,
yes,
pink and blue underneath, green and black, and then there's like a gold and red. That one.
This one. That's kind of like a portrait, really, of my grandson when he's young with his father, but it's kind of set in the city, and it's got this slightly weird background, which is kind of semi-urban but isn't quite.
Oh, I see. Yes, you're talking about the painting over there. Yeah.
No, did you want to talk?
I was talking about the other side, completely the other side. But I love this painting, and that's really interesting because that shows the two sides of your practice, that you've done the printmaking, and you're absolutely astonishing in your inventiveness and your innovation within the printmaking. But you also have this lovely part of your practice, which is painting.
Yes.
And you've got another painting next to it. Is that also yours?
Which painting are we talking about?
So now? You've got the one on the door, and then you've got the one on the wall.
Oh, the one on the wall. No, that's a screen print.
That's a screen print.
Yes, that's my Carnage and Chaos.
That looks like a dinosaur.
Yeah, Tyrannosaurus Rex. But he's also accompanied by. There's a couple of characters in there. That on the back of the Tyrannosaurus is Ragtag waving a rifle. And nearer the foreground, there's a harlequin who's called Bobtail. Don't ask me why. But he likes throwing flaming skulls to add to the general chaos, basically.
I don't see what a problem with that is.
No, but that's what they do, and there's a whole series to do with that.
Oh, look, we've got sunshine coming through the window now, just burning that out. So talk to us about the lino cuts that you were just talking about.
You want the bigger one with the red and in the middle. That's kind of because you can use the blocks and create something bigger.
Yes.
and I found that can be quite interesting on that front. Hang on.
There we go. Then we can see you.
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy for you not to see me, but I think. Oh no, it's probably.
That's okay. Is it possible for you to take one or two of the smaller
Yeah,
pieces off the wall and bring them over to us?
I can certainly do that. This one, I can't remember what this one's called. Let me have a look. Unwelcome, basically.
And that looks like an extract of the shapes and negative spaces you were just looking at.
Yes, well, this is actually one which I but I used the same kind of technique. I used based it partly on some of those shapes, and then tweaked it a bit. You go through them and decide which one you like, and you kind of then you play around with it. And this one I just did with two other shapes, and I did a plain color background, and then I did another shape on top of it.
You have quite a distinctive color palette.
That one was, yes, I did quite a lot of. Well, one of the things about trying the this is another classic. This is kind of more like a mother and child. Can you see that one?
Yes, mother and child. I can see that in there.
Kind of dancing on the, but that is also kind of using the same kind of figures. I seem to be getting a double reflection. Are you?
Yes, you're getting just a line across the middle. I think it's because of your window. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I can't do anything about that really.
No, that's okay. It's okay as long as you hold it still. It's fine.
Yes, I find. I mean, I think that yellow, red, and black. I mean, with printmaking, particularly with these kind of more opaque colours that you get with liner cuts, there's a lot to be said for the red and black and orange and black, and you need these kind of contrasts.
Yes.
And yellows. Here's another one, which is called Multi-Legged Beast. Really.
And that looks a little bit like your one in the COVID series, doesn't it?
It is. So it's combined with something else, really. So underneath it, it's got something different, and then it's got the kind of COVID beast on top.
Yes, and these are very solid, flat colours.
Yes, and one of the reasons is that the water-based schmink, I think they're called, inks, and what you find is, because I use water-based inks, I use Japanese paper. What you don't get is the transparency, which if you worked with oil, people who use kind of oil, you can thin the oil. You can make it more transparent. You can't really do that with the liner cuts. In order to get something paler, you have to mix it with more white.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very different experience for me, because in my screen printing, I like to use the pure colors. I like to use, what they call the process colors, CMYK, cyan and magenta, and because they don't have any, and then you just do things in layers.
And do you think that's because you have this affinity with the digital world, so that you quite gravitate towards those CMYK colours?
The purity of the color, because each medium brings its own color. I mean, one of the things that was really nice about doing stained glass was the color, and that was why when I did screen printing, a lot of people used opaque colors, mix their colors, but I actually always, once I'd realized that you could just do them pure, I was really happy with that. And particularly when we went on to the water-based ones, although they were terrible colors to start with. I mean, you can always tell how good a color is by the strength of the magenta, and if it's a pale magenta, you're in trouble. Do you want me to show you one of the things that one does for screen prints for people who, because one does because I do this system of working things. Here, I mean, I suppose everyone's seen these, but nowadays you always do this kind of thing to do it on put things on you put that onto the screen, which you photosensitized.
Yes.
So I do a lot of that. But one of the things that I do is little drawings, and I like to use small sketchbooks so that you can quietly draw people when they're not paying attention. Then you can kind of combine it with other. So I like to do the drawings small, so you scan them in.
Yes.
And that way I can work. And this print, I would say, was quite a good example of that. No, I don't know.
That was the acetate that you just showed us.
Yes, that's right. I thought.
And this is the outcome.
Yes. So what I've got really these are drawings of people waiting in hospital or in GP surgery. And depending on how relaxed or otherwise people looked, I did kind of different backgrounds for them. And for instance, this lady here, she was kind of really relaxed with Indian it. So I did. We'd lived in Nairobi, and I'd got a painting I'd done of the garden there. So I put her surrounded by garden things, and this guy here was listening he was on headphones. So I did my kind of Song of Africa for him. And then the woman in the middle with the dark coat, she looked really tense. And I thought she was expecting bad news. And then there was another one who was just on their mobile and obviously wasn't bothered at all. And the woman at the top was very relaxed. She was in the hospital. And, she obviously wasn't worried.
It's just an amazing story.
It's putting things together and using, and also I'd like to use my own materials so that if I'm doing a background, even if I've been influenced by something else, I like to do my own version of it. So, you might do a watercolor, which you might scan in, because that affects the texture you get.
Yes.
So you can get something completely different. It's just, and so you scan these things, and you can work on it in Photoshop or something like that, and it's like a collage.
Mm.
But I then like to do a print because I know that actual screen printing, that there are always extra changes when you actually do that. It doesn't look just like a computer print.
No, so it's your process, your methodology is just incredible because it goes through so many manifestations to get to the outcome. But you just mentioned Nairobi there. You lived in Nairobi, and Franna just said your colours look very African. And I was like, wow, you can see now you have an affinity to this quite hot palette, and you lived in a hot country.
Yes, which is why, on the whole, I hardly ever do English landscape. I mean, when I go on holiday and we're going somewhere hot, then I might do some drawings and watercolours. But I actually find that I'm not good at it. I can enjoy it, but I don't want to paint it.
Yes.
And it always feels terribly tamed to me. Wherever you're going, but the trees, I do love the trees in England. It's one thing I don't, and I love the trees of Africa, but I would hate to live somewhere where you didn't have trees.
Well, we'd be very worried if we didn't have trees. I think none of us would be living here, would we?
There are places where obviously they're countries like Mongolia where they don't really have much in the way of trees, or large parts of China, as far as I can see.
So you love the natural world, but that influence of the time you spent in Nairobi is still very strong by the looks of it.
Well, oh yes, because I was brought up in East Africa. And I went to school in Nairobi. So basically, all one's childhood and adolescence was spent in Africa, not in East Africa, in Tanzania, basically.
And that makes so much sense now by looking at your artwork, that you can see those significant influences in your choice of the shapes that you choose to make and the color palette that you choose.
But one of the things I found really interesting about doing the woodcuts was how something like the writing I did, which looked really round, became positively ethnic looking when you translated it into a woodcut. You know, I had a friend who bought it because it reminded of Australian art, and
Absolutely.
And it wasn't on purpose at all. It wasn't on. It was just that when you changed it, you get kind of sharp corners, which is one of the reasons why one likes this change between. You know, you don't want to do everything on the computer. I really enjoy using it, but I would hate to be told that you must do everything on it, that the artwork you produce must come out of it. I have done some purely digital artwork, which basically exist only on screen, I suppose. But actually, on that front, anything that's on screen can be printed out.
Yes.
So that is one of the things that I do think that it's a little bit. That's why when you were talking the other day about prints and people talk about Giglet prints, that's just a smart commercial move.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And there are now these NFTs, they're non-fungible tokens, which are only going to exist actually on computer. It is all just about commercialization. That's all it is.
Yes, because of course they could print that out. Of course you can lose things. You can actually lose things because there are programs. You know, that's like I've still got things on disc. You remember with these not CDs before that. I mean, I have no idea how you would access any of those. It's a bit like the storage changes all the time.
Absolutely. And they've got these blockchains that you can store things on, but they're blockchains for now, aren't they, in the current, what we're doing right now. So fascinating, Phillippa, your life and the way that has influenced your artwork. What's the future? What are you looking towards for the future?
Well, I basically want to, I just want more people to see my work, but it would actually be quite nice to be able to work with people, because it is particularly in some of the areas, it would be nice to be able to do, I suppose you would say, a group.
Yes, so you'd like to do collaboration.
Yes, because it's that's one of the things that you kind of miss sometimes. And
yes,
that is one of the areas that I'd definitely be interested in. I suppose the other project, I don't know whether you want to look at that at all, is my kind of climate change one.
Oh yes, come on. We're loving it, Phillippa. Just keep showing us more artwork. It's just fabulous.
Well, I started off with, and this was, you had a friend who was talking about the fact that editions, and I find my editions getting smaller because a lot of people just don't understand, and that's one of the things about the Giglet thing. Now you see, that's the first image, right?
Yes.
Which is basically a drawing, but I've actually added some of my saved textures.
I can see, yes.
Yes. So there's that one, and from that, I've been doing. Now here's this one, which is called Tremors. I'm imagining this in different scenarios.
Wow.
Too close, or should I go further?
No, back a bit. You're way too close right now. There we go. Back a bit more. Back a bit further. That's perfect. That looks like you've got birds like flying in and out of the print.
Well, I think one of the things about that is it's called Tremors because it's got little cracks appearing.
Yes.
Beginning of an earthquake.
And this is a screen print?
Well, it's a mixture of things. It's partly a screen print, and it's also, I've done a little bit of drawing, and I've also found I do with the just draw with a black pen, basically. Yeah. Waterproof black pen.
And that looks like the texture that you've put on the building.
Yes, and I quite a lot of textures. There's that one. In fact, the first first couple, these ones are kind of really about things being deserted, I guess.
And this work you've created during lockdown, have you?
Yes, I started it, and so some of this work has been. This one's a nighttime one, and basically leopard. And I've always had a bit of a thing about leopards. I think ever since we slept in a hut where we discovered which had no door, and in the morning we had pug marks around the place.
Oh my goodness. How scary.
Yes, it was.
They're amazing. So you're planning to get these framed up, are you? And then they'll be available for exhibition?
Oh, yes. And the thing about these ones is that you kind of build up, because here is a sample of the first one you saw, and then I've got a whole series of them where this is why this is like when you haven't worked on them yet.
Yes.
And you have a whole series of them. This one's just got some basic colours.
Fabulous.
But that may turn into something totally different.
Oh, well, I really love it like that. I think that looks amazing.
Yes, no, I've got them all in wondrous different colours.
They are amazing. They would make such an amazing exhibition all together.
Yes, that would be great.
I think you and I need to have a conversation about that. I think we need to have a conversation about that. So we've got some questions, Phillippa. Let's have a look at the questions.
Oh, yes.
See what people are asking you. Last one.
Yes, well, I'll show this one, yes, because people really like this one.
That's stunning.
That's where basically the sea is taken over.
Yes. That's like 50 Leagues Under the Sea, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
You can almost see the sea creatures coming through.
Yeah,
that whole series needs to be exhibited together.
Yes, no. But it's quite slow work, because unlike doing an edition, you're doing stuff and you have to change it as you go along.
Yeah, so they're all one-offs, which is, the most amazing thing. So Annie is saying you can create interesting calligraphy with dribbling PVA. Have you had a go at that? Have you ever tried that process?
Dribbling PVA?
Onto onto a surface, and then as it dries, you've got like the texture, and then you can print with it.
Oh, that sounds like a colograph of some kind.
Yes, yeah, I think quite a colograph process. I don't know whether you were listening to the Brenda Hartill printmaker talk.
I think I saw a bit of that, but that's one of the ones I've got to catch up on.
Yes,
because I can now catch up on my leisure.
You can.
Now mine is over, and so I can kind of sit back.
Not quite over yet. You've still got a couple more questions.
Although I have done calligraphy, I have done some kind of I have done collagraphs before, but I haven't done that particular way of doing it.
So Fran is saying, and I was intrigued about this as well. Is there a reason why you've stepped the edges to your prints? So on the backgrounds, you kind of stepped them down in different ways. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, there is actually, and I'm quite interested that you noticed. One of the things I find is that nowadays everyone has a mount.
Yes.
And then you have another square, and so I tend to feel like there are too many squares, and so I like to break it up a bit.
You're a disruptive, aren't you, Phillippa?
Well, otherwise people, what they see, and sometimes when you see people who've done, say, a whole lot of photographs, or they've done prints, and they're all the same size, and they're all like, what you see is a line of squares, and sometimes you don't get to look at the actual content of the square.
Yes, because our brain says that's the same, and it.
Yes, and so I like the edges to be, and in quite a lot of my prints, particularly my screen prints, you find the edges are broken up. I know there's going to be this kind of mount and square around that,
Yeah, you could float them, couldn't you? Your work would look beautiful float mounted, actually.
Yes, but people don't do that very often, and a lot of people are not they obviously feel uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, we float mount a lot of artwork actually, and I think it's a really beautiful way to see the whole picture.
Yes, no, I think it is.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Just to kind of wrap everything up, you mentioned at the beginning that you'd had that piece selected for the discerning eye. Have you applied for other things in the past and been accepted? And do you intend to apply for that kind of open exhibition
Yes,
in
I
the
have.
future?
Yes, I have done other ones. Shown at the Bankside one, and you've got into various things. I'm not a great one for keeping track of things, but I do try it. But I have some years where I can't be asked, and other years I give it a real go.
That's such a very genuine artist response. I love that. Some years it's just all too much, isn't it, for us?
It's one of the things that has changed for I think a bit in the art world is that with fairs and all the rest of it is that quite often artists are the one that the people who run the art fair are making the money out of.
Of course.
And sometimes, I mean, I still remember one that was held in Brick Lane, and some printers from Glasgow had come down. I didn't do that one, but I just went to see it, and they were really irritated, more than irritated, because it had cost them quite a lot coming down, and they quite well know the Glasgow printmakers, but the footfall was hardly anything.
And that's down to the marketing.
Basically, the money had been made by the artists'
yes
work, and the organisers, although they promised all this, activity, didn't deliver on that front at all. And I feel that artists have gradually, whereas when they first started some of those things, were quite reasonable.
Yes, well, you have to remember that this is all commercialization, and we have the power of walking with our feet, don't we? And that's why I say that you have the power and the authority to make the decisions for yourselves as artists. And the more we grow awareness and the more that we talk openly about these situations, the more confident you can be in making wise and informed choices as to how to spend your time and your money, because it's not just your money. Spending your time on these things, I've often said there's an hour I'm never going to get back.
Yes,
when someone's wasted my time.
That happens quite often. Yes.
Yeah. And now that's why we want openness and complete transparency in the art market, because then everyone can make the decisions for themselves. The Brick Lane situation might work for some artists because they may have made the decision that that's what they wanted. They just want to be able to put it on their CV, and it was a means of getting more confident. But for other people, it's not right. And you have to be really confident when you go after these opportunities that they're going to deliver what you want, and never be afraid to ask the difficult questions.
No, I think there's a lot to be said on that front.
Yeah, we have lots of conversations about that in Pure, and I've been in this world for a long time now, over 20 years, and I've been on both sides, in the galleries and in the art fairs, and supporting artists. And it is a very costly way to build your CV, Jane, absolutely, and not one that I would advocate. These are called vanity shows. And I always say, if they're asking you to pay to put your artwork on the wall, that's the minute you should turn around and walk away, because they've, as you quite rightly say, Phillippa, they've already made their money, and they don't have an investment. They don't have, what do they call it? They don't have skin in the game. And everyone needs to have skin in the game. You have to have, it's like us doing this.
Yeah.
We have to be, it's as important to me that we do a good job for Pure as it is I do a good job for the artists. And so I have skin in the game, and I need it to work.
I mean, I thought it was a good opportunity doing the Pure music. And also, it wasn't unreasonable.
No, well, we're never unreasonable.
Sometimes people want you to pay £400 or something. They say, "Oh, we'll give you this offer. Would you like to show in our magazine or whatever? 400 quid," and you say, "Piss off." You'll be very lucky if something came out of it.
Yes, and I think that's the thing. As I say, informed choices, always conscious decision making. Think about what your strategic goal is, where you want to go, and then there is a pathway.
Yes.
And the pathway has to be considered. And there is a pathway, and those pathways are changing slightly as a result of COVID. And there are lots of other opportunities, and that's why we're doing a lot of what we're doing. Like at the weekends, I was saying yesterday, we're running for the next 5 weeks, we're running talks on a Saturday evening about NFTs, because everyone needs to know what they are so they can make a conscious decision whether they're right for them or not. And it's just being open and transparent.
Yes, I'm not terribly. Yeah, I mean, I just think that, as I say, anything can be. I meant to bring a couple of examples of digital work that one printed out. You can tell when it's purely digital when you blow it up. If you've done on an iPad or something like that, because it looks different. The way that a color goes over the other is you wouldn't do it if you were painting.
No, and also the pixelation and the structure is different.
Yes. Yeah.
I love the fact that you were into digital like 20 years before anyone even knew that was a thing.
You know, that's the thing. I've got really early prints, but then people had no idea what, they say, oh, did the computer draw it? Like hell it did. You know?
Oh, Phillippa, it's been a joy. It's been a joy to talk to you. I've really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. You've brought a really new way of thinking, and you've really presented us with some really unusual and interesting artwork in the way you're collaging, but with digital, and you're creating negative spaces that are creating this creatures with humor. I absolutely love it, and I would love to work with you again. Hopefully we'll get the opportunity to exhibit some of your work.
Good. Okay, thank you very much, Lesley.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. If anyone's got any more questions, do pop them in the ask a question area. I know Annie said she was just mentioning about the train window effect, which is what you were saying about. But yes, absolutely. People just get switched off if it's all the same. Curation, that's why I'm always fascinated when I curate something and people say, oh, but that doesn't look right next to that. And I'm like, perfect, leave it there. Because what you're trying to do is disrupt. You're trying to get to tell a story through your curation that stops people walking past, but actually stops and dwell and actually look at the work. So yeah, that's the beauty of curation, and that is a skill.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I will be in touch with you, Phillippa, after this to carry on that conversation with you. But for now, we're finished, and tomorrow we will be talking to David Winston, who is a traditional photographer who prints all of his own work, and he talked to us in edition 1 about some of his processes, and I'm really interested to hear more this time. So I look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow. Thank you so much, Phillippa, and I will speak to you after this.
Okay.
I'll be in touch. I will email you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so